I want to let y'all know we're going to be hitting in my presentation. I'm going to be hitting, okay, unorthodox and orthodox Islam, which would be Middle Eastern Islam, okay? That Islam practiced in what you would call the Middle East, which is actually just an extension of Africa. And we're going to be cracking the NOI, okay? We're going to crack Elijah Muhammad head. We're going to crack WD fraud ass Muhammad head. And we're going to crack Farrakhan. So I hope somebody got the link to Farrakhan, okay? So that he can see this for himself. Now, mind you, family, I want to, make this statement very clear because everybody needs to understand the next few words that's going to come out my mouth. The most important thing that you should know about this presentation is that I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck if you're mad. I don't give a fuck how you feel. I don't give a fuck if you're sad. I don't give a fuck if you want to go commit suicide. I don't give a fuck. That needs to be understood. Now, why am I saying that? Because the NOI in the Muslim community has been known to try to vigilantly attack people who expose the corruption and the lies. Malcolm X exposed Elijah Muhammad and they set him up to be killed, which I'll explain in this lecture, don't worry. Khalid Muhammad left the NOI and he also had his set of beefs. And so what we want to let people that are associated with Islam, what we want to let them know is, I don't know if y'all like to run y'all shit like it's a game, but I don't give a fuck. The truth will be told repetitively and repetitively and repetitively until it doesn't need to be said no more because it's fully understood. And so with that being said, Islam and the Quran exposed. Let's get into it, family. Matter of fact, hold on. My water is too far out of reach. I don't want to be traveling. Hold on, let me get my water. I'm going to need my motherfucking water because I'm expecting my motherfucking laptop to catch on fire and I'm going to have to put the motherfucker out. So I'm going to need my water. Hold on, family. I didn't get his water right. All right. Here we go. Fuck it. I'm not even putting the top on it because I'm going to need that. And without further ado, okay, I present to you the Quran and Islam exposed. Let me make sure all my volumes is up. Hold on, let me make sure all my volumes is up. All right. Let's do this, family. Let's go. We riding on their ass. Let's go. Gang. Here we go. But the historical origins of Islam. See, now before I start this presentation, okay, I want to give my proper research respects, okay, outside of myself to the General Cyrus Suicedi and Walter Williams. Straight up, okay? Because without that combination, okay, such beautiful facts, would not be able to be accumulated in such a manner. And so with that being said, we must, give our proper respects when due. And so with that being said, continuing on, the historical origins of Islam, part 1. It must first be understood that without the Quran, there is no Islam. Okay? Islam is based off the Quran, which was not created until 1919 AD. That's exactly 99 years ago from today, which is 2018. So let's make that clear, okay? We're going to be going into that, but let's make that clear. Do not let these niggas get out here telling you that Muhammad wrote some magical ass book in 622 AD when the book was just created 99 years ago from today. That's off the gate. Now, Islam, okay, is formatted after the establishment of the Quran, which means without no Quran, there is no Islam. And without no Christianity, there is no Quran. Now, why is this important? The Quran claims to be written in 622 AD. The first Bible, which was the Hebrew Bible, was not created until 1475 AD, which was printed in Italy. So how can the Quran be based off the Old Testament if the Old Testament, okay, according to these numbers in the chronology, was printed after the Quran? That would mean that the Quran would have had to been printed after the Old Testament in order for it to contain the Old and New Testament. So when you do your research on the Quran, and thanks to Walter Williams, we come to find out that the Quran was just printed 99 years ago. And this is why the shit don't add up. But we're going to go into that. But I'm just letting y'all know that before we get past the first slide, we already done killed it. Okay? Because Muhammad lived about 1,300 years before 1919. So how did Muhammad author a book that came out damn near 1,300 years after he died? Mind you, Muhammad never even existed. Okay, and we're going to go into that. And so before we get past the first slide, I want to let y'all know we're not giving these niggas no room to breathe at all. On the first, no, motherfucker, don't even take a sniff. We don't want no air in your nostril. We suffocating straight up, straight the fuck up. Next paragraph. Next, it must be understood that the Quran stems from Christianity. Meanwhile, Islam stems from Muhammadism. Okay? Which will be explained in the next upcoming slides. So let me give y'all the understanding before we go. The book that you call the Quran is based off of the book that you call the Bible. The religious practices that you call Islam is based off of what you call Muhammadism. Now, Muhammadism comes from a Islamic entity who was born in, I want to say, the 11th century AD. Okay, we're going to get into him in a second. And he created rituals and practices, two of them being Hajj, the pilgrimage to Hajj. One of them being the pilgrimage to Hajj, and the other one being a book of his personal sayings called the Hadith. Now, mind you, he was born about 600 years after the alleged birth of who they call the Prophet Muhammad. So why is this important? The Hadith, okay, the pilgrimage to Hajj was created 600 years after Muhammad allegedly established Islam. Mind you, there was no such thing as Islam at the time of the creation of the Hadith and Hajj. And so when you read the Quran does not tell Muslims how to pray, and it does not speak of these practices. Islam, which is formatted out of the Quran, held on to these practices from Ibn al-Abir, who was also known as Muhammad, who created these practices and gave them to the Ottoman Turks, who helped to spread these practices all throughout the regions surrounding the Middle Eastern area, even to regions out as far as Spain and Russia. And this is why the Moors say that Islam was forced on them in 711 AD, which is not true. Muhammadism, okay, which was the wave that everybody was riding, as far as everybody becoming followers of Ibn al-Abir, but we'll just call him Abir for short. Everybody was following the practices of Abir, and they were spreading his message. And then in 1919, when the Ottoman Turks were defeated, finally, okay, the Quran was produced, but some of the works of Muhammadism were kept. And so the Hajj and the Hadith that Muslims partake in comes from Muhammadism. It doesn't even come out the Quran. And so Islam is a hybrid religion, okay, infused with Judaism, Christianity, and Muhammadism. It must be understood that Muhammadism is not Islam. It is separate from Islam, and it is what Islam was manifested from, okay, via this in the Quran. So let's get that understood. Now, why is this important? All of these factions, which helped to create Islam, were established 600 to 1,300 years after the birth and death of Muhammad, who allegedly established Islam. So we want to make that clear. There was no such thing as Islam until 1919 AD. Mecca itself, the holy city, was not even built until 1936 AD, which is about 60 years ago. So how was Muhammad born in a place, okay, that didn't exist until 60 years ago? How? Let's go. Let's go. The historical origins of Islam, part 2. Slavic Europeans in the 7th century AD are known today as what you would call Muslim Arabs. These same Slavics went on to become those who are known as the Ottoman Turks, who helped spread and establish Mohammedanism. The Ottoman Turks reigned from 1300 AD to 1919 AD. Okay, let's keep it moving. Jacob Berardius, also known as James Baradi, introduced Serapis worship to the Slavic Europeans in 542. Now pause before I go on. As Walter Williams stated, it is important to know the evolution of Christianity in order to know the evolution of Islam. We know that Jesus comes from Serapis. Okay? We know that Serapis went on to become Christos, which went on to become Christ, which went on today to become Jesus Christ. Okay? And so we know that Muslims also believe in not only Jesus Christ, all the prophets of the Bible. And so we have to understand where Islam, at what point in time did Islam begin to adopt, okay, the Christ-like mentality. And so what I want y'all to know is, remember, mind you, in 542 AD, Muhammad was not born yet, allegedly, because he never existed. So we have to deal with allegedly. In 542 AD, there was no Muhammad. There were only Slavic Europeans. And so I want y'all to understand where the Middle East got their ideology of Serapis from, who will go on to become Christ. So I'm going to start the paragraph over. Jacob Berardius, also known as James Baradi, introduced Serapis worship to the Slavic Europeans in 542 AD. The Jacobite church in Syria was built in 543 AD and named after Jacob, okay, aka Jacob Berardius. It was used for Serapis worship and also as a main headquarters for Slavic Europeans, okay, also known today as Muslim Arabs. The Slavics/Arabs went on to conquest many areas, one being Spain, to which it is said they forced Islam on the blacks in Spain at that time. Now, note, Slavic invaders did not force Islam on the so-called Moors in 711 AD because it did not exist at that time. Islam is a religion based off the book titled the Quran. The Quran was first formulated in Syria during the year 1870 and was accepted by the Mohammedan world in Cairo, Egypt in 1919, which will be 49 years later. In 711 AD, the Slavics were trying to force Serapis worship on the blacks of that time period. So even when the Moors get to talking about something, oh, they came to Spain trying to force Islam on them, the only reason the Moors say that is because they're attached to Islam as well, which is a sector of Masonry. And so they have to validate the lie in order to falsely give it an existence in a time period to which it didn't exist. And so in 542 AD, James Baradius showed the Slavic Europeans the Serapis worship formula, okay? The format for Serapis. And these Slavic Europeans adopted it and went on to conquest blacks in the surrounding areas with this Serapis ideology. And these Slavic Europeans went on to become the Ottoman Empire, who then went on today to become what we call the Muslim Arab. So we have to make that understanding clear that there was no Islam until 1919 AD. Now let's keep rocking. The historical origins of Islam, part 4. The Hagia Sophia. Don't worry, I'll explain to you exactly what this is, all right, if you don't have the understanding right now. The Byzantine Empire, okay, ruled from 395 AD to 1453 AD, which was the fall of Constantinople, being the holy seat of the world's first church, known as the Hagia Sophia, which you see right here, which was built in 532 AD in Constantinople. Now, mind you, let's go back a slide. Okay, Jacob Baradius, who taught the Slavic Europeans, went on to become the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire went to war with the Byzantine Empire, which was an extension of Rome. Now, the Byzantine Empire, okay, were the head of the first Christian church, which you see right here, called the Hagia Sophia. Now, this church was established for Serapis worship, okay? And the Byzantine Empire fought the Ottoman Turks from 532 AD all the way until 1453 AD, when the Ottoman Turks finally took over the Hagia Sophia. And so once the Hagia Sophia finally fell, okay, the Europeans, aka the Byzantine Empire, fled to Rome, and they established the Church of St. Peter's, and they established the Vatican. And so let's make this clear. The Vatican was not the initial home of Christianity. It was built in retreat in 1445 in preparation for the fall of the Hagia Sophia. And so we have to understand this, okay? Because once the Hagia Sophia fell and the Europeans fled to Rome, it was the first time that white people were ever in control of Christianity without black influence, okay? Because remember, when they established Serapis worship, they were living amongst black people and conquering. Once the Ottoman Turks, okay, aka the Arabs or the Slavic Europeans, pushed the Byzantine/Romans out of this region, they pushed them out of control of the black people that they were in control of as well. And so when they fled back to Rome, okay, in Europe, and they established the Church of St. Peter's, and they built the Vatican in 1445, and they began to build it in 1445 in preparation for the fall of this church, they were in control of Christianity without any need to accommodate the psychiatric ideology of the people they were enslaving. And so this is when religion began to become racially distinctive as purely white. Okay? And this is when everybody began to look solely white. Because remember, at this time, they were still debating if Serapis was even a person, and if Jesus was even a person, even if they had a human nature. So they didn't physically have a confirmed identity of the Christ-like figure, okay, and of the Serapis-like figure. Now that needs to be understood, because we're going to break down why Muhammad don't got no goddamn face in this presentation. But continuing on, the Hagia Sophia was turned into a museum in 1935 after being conquered by the Ottoman Empire in 1453 from the Byzantine Empire. Now, this is what you call, in history, this is called the fall of Constantinople, okay? Remember, this was the world's first church, all right? The Hagia Sophia. Once this fell to the Arabs, okay, the Christian empire ran back to Rome and built the Vatican, and they built the Church of St. Peter's. All right, once conquered, the Europeans fled to Rome, where they established the Vatican, St. Peter's Church, which was first built in 1445 AD in preparation for the fall of Constantinople in 1453. Now, why is this important? Because we want to continue, before we go in on Islam, we want to continue to show you the ancient, not even the ancient, about 1,000 years ago, right? We want to show you the historical world, which is void of Islam. So before I go all the way in on fucking Islam, I want to show you beyond a reasonable doubt that Islam did not exist until 99 fucking years ago. There was no Islam in ancient times. And so we can see from the time Alexander and the Ptolemies came into Egypt from 332 AD, all the way up into 1453 AD, there is no mention of Islam or Muhammad. Okay? Period. And so when they say Muhammad conquered Mecca, okay, how, if the Hagia Sophia didn't fall until 1453? Muhammad ass has been dead, allegedly, if he lived, for about 600 years from now. So how did Muhammad conquer Mecca, okay, and conquer the Middle East if it wasn't conquered until 600 years after he died? So if Muhammad never conquered the Middle East to establish Islam, further, without the fact that it wasn't created until 1919, we can prove that no Islam was established. Period. Let's keep it moving. Note, there was no such thing as a pope before 1445 AD. Now, that's going to be very important, all right? Because when you read on the history, okay, dealing with the Ottoman Empire and the Byzantine Empire, they like to emplace popes even before this time period, even as far back as 1100 AD, to make you believe that the Vatican Church was already pre-established. So we have to let people know that the Vatican Church was not established until after the fall of the Hagia Sophia, when they were forced to retreat. And so with that being said, I just got to let y'all know, history ain't shit. It's a lie and it's false. Now, why would it be an importance in making sure that people understand that there was no such thing as a pope? Because if there was no such thing as a pope, then there's no such thing as the Holy Church of Sepulchre, okay? Which this is said to be the place where Jesus died. Now remember, as General Seti stated before, Muslims don't only have to prove their prophets, they have to prove Christianity's prophets as well, because they believe in Adam, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, etc. And so why is this important? Muslims, before they get to talking about their book, they still have an obligation to prove that Jesus even existed. Now, I'm going to prove to you that this place was built after the time period to which they say Jesus died. So not only didn't Jesus exist, even if Jesus did exist, he couldn't have died here because this fucking place didn't exist. Watch this. Once again, note, there was no such thing as a pope before 1445 AD. It wasn't until the European Slavics fled to Europe after losing the Crusades to the Ottoman Empire that they had full racial control over Christianity / Serapis / Christ and its hierarchy. In 1445, okay, church and state had separated completely, and it was the first time that Europeans were in complete control of Christianity. They began to create and elect their own popes at this time. So once again, it wasn't until after 1453 that the Europeans were in full control of Christianity, to which at that time they began to create and elect their own popes. Now, why is this important? There was no Holy Land or Jerusalem in the 4th century, okay? Because there was no subject or object for Christianity / Christ until the 5th century AD, where Christ was created at the Council of Ephesus, which is in 421 AD. The Holy Church, Sepulchre, as you see here, was built in 326 AD, okay? And it is said to be where Jesus was crucified. This cannot be true because it was built 400 years after Jesus allegedly died. Now, the Council of Nicaea took place in 325 AD. This was finished in its completion to be built a year after in 326 AD. Jesus was dead for 326 years, okay, before this shit was built. So how the fuck was Jesus crucified here if the place didn't exist? And so, with that being said, not only is this another dagger in Christianity, this is a dagger in Islam, because once again, before Islam can begin to subscribe to its own teachings, it must still validate that this ever happened. Because if this didn't happen, okay, then there is no need for you to be trying to teach people about Muhammad and all of this other shit in the Quran when you have not validated one of the main prophets in your book. Period. Now let's keep it moving. The historical origins of Mecca. Oh, not Mecca. Oh, no. Not Mecca. Yes, Mecca. There is no mention of Mecca or the Kaaba in any authenticated ancient documents, including the Vatican's archives. Thank you very much, Walter Williams. So remember this before I even go. When the Hagia Sophia fell in 1453, Europeans fled to Rome, okay, and they built the St. Peter's Church and they built the Vatican. And people say, why is the Vatican built like a military fortress? Now you know why, because they was going to war during them goddamn crusades. Now, why is this important? In the Vatican's archives of its own history, does it ever mention Muhammad or does it ever mention Mecca, nor does any ancient Arabic documents of that area that have been verified to be real mention Mecca, which means during the Crusades, the people who were a part of the Crusades, their goddamn selves, said that this place did not fucking exist. So this proves my point even more, and Walter Williams' point even more, that Mecca did not exist until 1936. You can't argue with somebody who went to war in that region and confirmed that this was not in existence in that region at that time. Okay? There is no, what did the general say? There's no reference like a primary reference. This is primary. They was on the spot. You can't, what you gonna tell the Pope in the goddamn Vatican that they wasn't started in 1453? I'm pretty sure they know when, goddamn it, they was overthrown and they lost the Hagia Sophia. I don't think that that's something that you just forget about. And so let's keep it moving, okay? Mecca nor Medina did not exist until 1926, and it was not completed in its construction until 1936, where it was built under the rule of Aziz al-Suad. Everybody go look up Aziz al-Suad, spelled A-Z-I-Z space A-L space S-U-A-D, okay? This is who started and ordained the construction of the holy city of Mecca. So until he became the ruler over there in the Middle East, there was no Mecca, okay? There was no such pilgrimage or Hajj in Mecca before 1926. This is the first year in history that any Islamic meeting had ever occurred, which was on March 3rd, 1926, okay? Let me say that again, because I don't think y'all got that. This was the first year in history that any Islamic meeting had ever occurred, which was on March 3rd, 1926. Mind you, the Quran was just created 7 years before that. Islam was created 7 years before that, which was 1919. This was also the first time in Islam's history to elect a caliph as the leader of the Islamic world community. Even at this meeting, there was no Kaaba, black stone, or mosque, okay? Muslims simply prayed in an open area that was designated as a mosque. Mecca, Kaaba, and the black stone was not completed in its construction till 1934. Now, why is this important? Even at this goddamn meeting that you see, they confirmed that this place did not exist. When they did their rituals that they got from Abir, okay, they didn't pray in no mosque. They was outside. And so we can prove that Muhammad never founded or established Mecca because we have validation from the ancient world being documents in Vatican archives, and we have validation from fucking almost 80 years ago from Aziz al-Suad that this place did not exist. So if Muhammad did not found Mecca, then you need to throw that goddamn Quran in the garbage where it belongs. Period. You need to throw it in the garbage because Muhammad founding Mecca is the foundation of the Quran. So if Muhammad did not found Mecca, then he didn't do anything else in that Quran that the Quran says he did. There is no argument for that. There is no rebuttal for that. You cannot fight construction. Okay? This is just like with the Meta Nature. When niggas say, oh, this got built. Nigga, this is 30,000 years older than the person you say who built it. Okay? If motherfucking Muhammad, listen to this, family, because I need this to sink in before I go. If Muhammad allegedly founded Mecca in 622 and created Islam, but the first Islamic meeting in history ever recorded was in 1926, that's over 1,300 years later. That's over 1,300 years later. So if Islam was created in 1622, why the fuck did they wait 1,300 years to have a meeting, let alone elect a caliph? On March 3rd, 1926 was the first time a caliph was ever elected in Islamic history. Why the fuck did they wait so long? Let alone, this wasn't even here still. They built this 10 years after they elected their first caliph. And so Islam got some splaining to do. Let's keep it kicking. Question: how could Muhammad have been born or traveled to a place that did not exist? Note, the original name for Mecca was Makoraba, spelled M-A-C-O-R-A-B-A. Now, why is this important? Why was it not already called Mecca? Why was it not already holy? Here we go. If Muhammad created motherfucking the holy city of Mecca in 1622. Mind you, this building wasn't there. Why was that area called Makoraba? So did Muhammad create Makoraba and then somebody else later changed it to Mecca? If Muhammad created a holy city, why did they have to make it holy in 1926? Why did they have to change the name of the region from Makoraba to Mecca? Who built Makoraba? Asshole. See, this is what they don't want y'all to know. They don't want y'all to know that it was something there before this was. They want y'all to think that this is just what it was from the beginning of time. Because I know everybody probably don't read the Quran in detail, so let me jump into it for a little bit. The Quran tells you that Allah ordained Muhammad to savagely pillage the Middle East and build the holy city of Mecca, and that this was the first and holiest city in the world. But what they don't tell you is that not only didn't this city exist until about fucking 80 years ago, it was this region was called Makoraba. And so why did Makoraba have to become Mecca if it was allegedly Mecca the whole time? Let's keep it moving. Did Adam, Abraham, and Ishmael help build the Kaaba? Okay, now this is the Kaaba in Mecca. All right, and you see all of these Muslims gathered around, and I'll break this science down later in the lecture. And this is the black stone, right? Now, according to Islamic tradition, Adam, and if y'all don't know which Adam I'm talking about, because some of y'all might not be familiar with Islam, we talking about the biblical Adam from Adam and Eve story. Okay, now according to Islamic tradition, Adam placed the black stone in the Kaaba, in the original Kaaba, while Abraham and Israel and Ishmael rebuilt the Kaaba many years later. Mecca by Islamic tradition is considered the most important city in the world. Okay, now here's the question. How could any of these religious biblical characters interact with the city that was built 6,000 years after their existence? Huh? Because according to the Bible and the Quran, Adam and Eve was the first people here. And they believe that they was here 6,000 years ago. And then a couple thousand years after they lived, maybe about 2,000, 1,500 to 2,000, Abraham and Ishmael walked the earth. Now here's the question. If the fucking city was just built in 1930 goddamn 6, asshole, how the fuck did Adam put the stone in the Kaaba 6,000 years ago? How did he do that? Mind you, it say Abraham and Ishmael rebuilt it, which means this is not even the same Kaaba if so that Adam was fucking with 6,000 years ago. Now, why is this important? The people who are actually over here having an entire war, okay, being the Ottoman Turks, which today are known as Muslim Arabs, and the Vatican Church, in their own documentation, said that none of this shit existed. Okay? So, I'm going to ask y'all again. How did Adam put the black stone in the Kaaba if the black stone and the Kaaba didn't exist until 6,000 years after Adam allegedly existed? Okay, next slide. Let's go. I'm just warming up, baby. I'm only on slide 9. I got 98 slides for you motherfuckers. This is only slide 9, baby. This is only slide 9. I'm just warming up. The historical origins of Muhammad. See, we already done shook the ground on motherfucking Islam in its origins. Okay? Now we gonna come snatch the rug from up under Muhammad. The historical origins of Muhammad, part 1. Muhammad never existed. Let's get that clear. His life is based off of a man who was born July 29th in 1165 AD. Okay? Which is 600 years after the alleged birth of the religious prophet known as Muhammad. His name was Ibn al-Arabi. Ibn space A-L space A-R-A-B-I, whose death led to what is known today as Muhammadism. Okay? Ibn al-Arabi, during his life, gained many followers and disciples. He is also responsible for creating the Islamic ritual known today as the pilgrimage of the Hajj. Mind you, when this was created, there was no Mecca because Mecca was considered a blissful place in the mind. Okay, just like in Buddhism, when they say, find your place of enlightenment. Okay, and any Muslim that you talk to today will tell you, oh, Mecca is any place that you want to go. But that understanding comes from Ibn al-Amir, who was not an Islamic practitioner, but he created this mental format, which went on to be adopted by Islam many years later. Now watch this. Bringing it back. He is responsible for creating the Islamic ritual known today as the pilgrimage of the Hajj, practiced today by all Muslims. Mecca was considered a blissful place in one's mind and wasn't made into a physical place until almost 800 years later after Abir's death. He also recorded his personal teachings in a book titled the Hadith, all right, which is mistakenly said by Muslims today to be the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. But the Hadith is nothing more, okay, than the personal log book of Abir and his personal ideology. This is why the Quran does not speak of the Hadith, but Islam does, because Islam is stealing from Abir's teachings, and the Quran is stealing from Christianity's teaching. Let's keep it rocking. Abir was also known in his time as Muhammad, which meant praiseworthy. He died in 1239 AD. After his death, his followers continued to practice and follow his teachings and rituals in what was known as Muhammadism. Okay? The Ottoman Turks helped to spread Muhammadism in the 13th century from the Middle East to places as far as Africa, Spain, and even all the way to Russia by means of conquest. Okay? By the 14th century, the Ottoman Turks even began to scream Muhammad or die as they approached their enemies. Muhammadism was updated to Islam after the creation of the Quran in 1919 AD. Hence, why Muslims practice the Hajj and also utilize what is known as the Hadith, which both come from Ibn al-Abir, not the fictional prophet Muhammad. Note, this is why the Quran does not tell Muslims how to pray. Okay? So Muslims refer to the Hadith and the Ra'ats. Let's keep it kicking on their ass. Why is Muhammad's face never shown? Okay? Why is Muhammad's face never shown? Unlike Christ, in Orthodox Islam, it is against Islamic law to portray Muhammad with a face. Okay? Why would it be against the law? Let me ask y'all a question before I go. Why would it be against the law of your religion to portray your prophet with a face? Huh? What the fuck kind of sense does that make? Could it be because you really don't know what he looked like because he never goddamn existed? Could that be the answer to the question? And so with that being said, let's keep it kicking. No Islamic images of Muhammad, okay, or his face, right, is ever revealed. Shown in the next slide. So here's an image of Muhammad. This ain't Photoshop or none of that. This is how they paint the nigga with no face. All right, let's keep it moving. Here's another image of Muhammad. You see him interacting with the being. They put the face on the being. They put the face on all these beings. They still don't put no face on that nigga again. Huh? They still don't put no face on the nigga again. So the reason I showed this picture is because I don't want people to say, oh, Islam don't draw nobody with faces. Oh, no, nigga, no. They put faces on everybody except Muhammad. Now, let me go back a slide. It is against Islamic law to portray Muhammad with the face. I wonder why. I wonder why. Let's keep going. Here's another motherfucking picture of Muhammad without no face. Okay? Here's two more pictures of Muhammad without a face. And here you see two goddamn Arabs in the picture, and they got their face. Okay, you see the angel Gabriel. You see more Arabs down here. They got their face. Okay? Now, why is this important? I got a question now. See, one of the verses in the Quran says that Muhammad, okay, got the information to the same way they say God spoke to Moses. and gave Moses the information to write the Torah is the same way that they say the angel Gabriel spoke to Muhammad and told him to write the Quran. Now here's the two factors to why this is wrong. Factor one, Gabriel is an angelic character that comes from the Bible. He doesn't come from the Quran. So here's the question. If the first Bible was printed in 1475 AD and the Quran was written in 622 AD, how is a biblical character in the Quran? Huh? Because Gabriel should not be in the Quran if the Quran was here before the Bible. So what the fuck is Jesus and Gabriel doing in a goddamn Quran? So that shows you that the Quran had to have came out after the fucking Bible, which is way after the alleged life period of Muhammad, who never existed. They don't even paint the nigga with a face. Now here's point number two. If Gabriel gave Muhammad, okay, the understanding of the Quran, how the fuck do you know who he gave it to? You don't even know what the nigga look like. Muhammad hands is white. Them ain't black hands. Let's go back. Some more pictures. White man, white hands. White hands. White hands. Why is every picture of faceless Muhammad got white hands? And so, if all we had to go off was skin color, because we can't see the face, that means this angel gave the Quran to a white man. So what is black NOI niggas doing with it? Don't worry, I'll break that down in the end. But the point I'm trying to make is, you don't even know what this nigga look like, but you follow his every alleged word. And then they say that Muhammad was illiterate. But the Quran, the word Quran means to recite or record. How could an illiterate motherfucker recite and record and write a book? I know niggas in school right now who can't spell. They can't even pass a fucking vocabulary test. But this nigga can write a whole goddamn religious book. And then they say the man was illiterate. I bet you he was. He ain't got no fucking ears or no fucking eyes. Huh? Let's keep it moving. In the next slide, I will show you the only known picture in existence of what Muhammad really looked like. I'm going to pause on that and sip my water. All right. Y'all ready to see what Muhammad really looked like? This is the only known picture in existence of Muhammad. Here we go. Oh shit! I'll crack myself up. This is yo, this shit crazy, Teddy. I crack myself up. This is the only known picture of Muhammad to ever exist. Okay, this is what the nigga looked like. All right, this is the only. I want to let y'all know this is. I got the copyrights to this. This is the only known picture. I'm gonna probably sell it to the British Museum for about 1.5 million. Okay, here we go. The historical origins of the Quran. So we didn't hit Islam's origins. We didn't hit Mecca. Okay, and now we hit Muhammad. Now we finna hit that funky ass Quran. Okay. The Quran was first formulated in Syria in 1870 AD and was finished and accepted in the Mohammedan world in Cairo, Egypt in 1919 AD, which is 99 years ago from today. Now, when y'all hear the word Mohammedan world, what y'all have to understand is before 1919, there was no Islam. They were still practicing Muhammadism, which was nothing more than the teachings of Ibn al-Amir, who was born in the 1100s, okay, which is 600 years after the alleged prophet Muhammad died. So even if they try to switch it up and say, well, that's who they was talking about, bitch, that's not 622 AD. So if they try to even, if the Muslims try to even jump on a wave and say, oh, we was talking about IB and Al-Amir the whole time. Bitch, now you have to admit that you lied about the production date of the Quran and the religion. So you have to admit you've been lying the whole fucking time. Okay? Let's keep it moving. How did Muhammad write a book that came out 1,300 years after he was said to exist? Note, Muhammad was said to be illiterate. The word Quran means to recite/record. How could Muhammad write the Quran if he was illiterate? Paragraph 4. In the early Orthodox version of the Quran, the word Rahman, which means the compassionate, was used instead of the word Allah, which didn't come into use until later time. Hence, this is why Muslims practice Ramadan. Now, before I go in on what is Ramadan, let me drive this point home again. They didn't even use the fucking word Allah until the 1900s. When they first printed the Quran in 1919, the word for God was Rahman. Okay? This is why Muslims practice Ramadan. It ain't called Alamadan. It's called Ramadan. So ask any Muslim why they practice Ramadan. This is what they should tell you. Ramadan is the 9th month of the Islamic calendar and is observed by Muslims worldwide as the month of fasting to commemorate the first revelation of the Quran to Muhammad according to Islamic belief. Okay? Because the word for God was Rahman. And Ramadan is, to make it very simple, the day that God revealed the Quran to Muhammad during the 9th month according to the Islamic calendar. And then the word Rahman was switched to Allah. Now, why is this important? There was no word for Allah in the ancient world, where the alleged ancient world, because it was only fucking 1,300 years ago. And so with that being said, how did Allah speak to Muhammad and tell Muhammad to build Mecca if Allah didn't exist? The word Rahman didn't even exist, so don't try to go there. Or Mecca didn't exist. And Muhammad didn't exist. So that's just like when Hebrews say it wasn't no J's and Jesus' name is Yeshua. Bitch, it wasn't no Allah. So who the fuck was talking to Muhammad? And it wasn't no Rahman either. Let's keep it moving now. See, that's important. See, this is how you get niggas. You get them with the shit that they put in your face, but they don't like to explain to you. See, a nigga gonna tell you they celebrate Ramadan because God spoke to the Prophet Muhammad during the 9th month in the Islamic calendar. But then they don't tell you that before Allah, name was Allah, it was Rahman. Because if they tell you that, they got to tell you at what time period Allah came in. And they don't want to tell you that Allah and Rahman both came in the 1900s. Motherfucker. So Ramadan has not been happening for 1,300 years. It's been happening for 99 fucking years. So according to the origins of the truth, Ramadan did not happen in 622 AD when Mecca was established. It happened in 1919 when Aziz Su'ad built Mecca. Surprise. Surprise. Let's keep it moving. Historical origins of the Quran, part 2. The Quran was first formulated in Syria. Okay? Oh, let me skip. How is Muhammad in Mecca, right, if there was no Mecca? See, I'm going to show you how all these paintings are new. Just like, see, listen, in 1453, the Hagia Sophia fell, and I told y'all Europeans did what? They fled to Rome, and they built the Vatican. And then this is when they have, you know, their Renaissance age, and they got Michelangelo, you know, they got all of these motherfuckers painting these pictures of Jesus, and Jesus looked like Caesar Borgia and all of that, and all of those type of depictions. And so the point I'm trying to make is we can establish in Christianity that the images of Jesus Christ were created after 1,500 years after Jesus died. This is no different with Muhammad. This is why they don't show Muhammad's face. But also, remember I showed y'all the Kaaba a few slides ago. And the Kaaba in Mecca wasn't built until 1936. And so why is this important? How is Muhammad being depicted in paintings with a Kaaba that he never interacted with? Because these paintings are new. They're not old. They're new. But these niggas is putting them in your face as if they were old. Okay.